Today I'm going to talk about the new album by Alcatrazz called Take No Prisoners. This band has a very complicated history. I'll be talking about all of that in this video. I'll talk about what the critics think, and I'll give my thoughts on the songs. Make sure you stay until the end to see my score out of 10. So let me get into it. Take No Prisoners is the 6th studio album by Alcatrazz. The album was released on May 19th, 2023 through Silver Lining Music. This is the second album with vocalist Doogie White, who joined the band in 2020. Also the first album with drummer Larry Paterson, who replaced Mark Benquechea in 2022. The album also features a collaboration with the all-female band Girlschool on one of the songs called Don't Get Mad, Get Even, which I will talk about more in detail later. Some critics have described this album as a mix of American rock and British heavy metal, also citing influences from Thin Lizzy, AC/DC, Dio, Rainbow, and symphonic metal. I myself have my own opinions on this. I'll talk about it later. In general, the album received positive reviews from critics and fans, which I will also touch on later in the video. I remember that I reviewed the previous album, which came out in 2021, called V. I thought that was okay. I wasn't too enthusiastic about this one, but I actually thought this one was pretty good. Maybe better than the previous album. It definitely has its own personality. This band has a complicated history because the original vocalist was Graham Bonnet, who left the band, and now there are two versions of the band Alcatrazz. For the purposes of this video, I will call one the Waldo Shea lineup and the other one the Bonnet lineup. So this album, Take No Prisoners, is part of the Waldo Shea lineup, which is as follows: Doogie White on vocals, Jimmy Waldo on keyboards, Joe Stump on guitars, Larry Paterson on drums, and Gary Shea on bass. The Graham Bonnet lineup features Graham Bonnet on vocals and Jeff Loomis on guitars. That's really all I know, or at least all I found online. I haven't really heard anything from this version of the band yet. I believe they're working on an album. I know we got an album by Graham Bonnet, which came out last year, called Day Out Nowhere, and that's all I know. I would say this album is targeted to the older metalhead. I would say most fans would be over 40 years old because it has a sound that brings back traditional heavy metal. There's a lot of influence from bands from the 70s and 80s. So I would call it a dad rock or a boomer metal or whatever you want to call it. The album was pretty well received by critics. Let me read a few quotes from a few of the critics, and I'll give you my opinion on these as well. So the critics have been mostly positive about Take No Prisoners. So here are some excerpts. Take No Prisoners is a classic loud and proud rock album that draws on the tradition of Alcatrazz of technically excellent screeching guitars, thundering rhythm, and the kind of vocals and overall aura which evoke Prime Dio and Rainbow. So that was by Matt Coe of Dead Rhetoric. So I agree with the statement. I think there were a few songs that did remind me of the band Rainbow and even Deep Purple. I'll talk about that later. Take No Prisoners contains what longtime followers of the group desire: professionalism as well as proper songwriting that has all the right hooks, melodies, and musical intricacies desired for the style. Robert Cavuto, I love rock and roll. So I also agree with the statement. I believe that these are all top-notch musicians and they play music that's both heavy and melodic, but at the same time being musically proficient. I think as far as strengths, the album is very melodic. There are a wide variety of styles used throughout the songs, and they all fall under the umbrella of hard rock and heavy metal. As for negatives, at times the album doesn't really feel very original. Kind of feels like they're trying to sound like some classic bands, which I would mention as I go through the songs, like Deep Purple, Iron Maiden, and Rainbow. We talk about the songs now. The album has 10 songs and a total running time of 46 minutes. Little Viper is the first track in the album. This one comes right out the gate. It's very heavy and energetic. There are lots of guitar riffs. You can hear keyboards in the background. The drumming is very fast and frenetic. It's the lead song, and the band's letting you know they haven't slowed down and they are ready to rock. Don't Get Mad, Get Even. This is a song that reminds me of glam metal. I think the title actually sounds, or actually looks like a glam metal song. I know I've heard it before, and I had to look it up. It's actually one of the songs from Aerosmith's Pump album, but it's not the same song, just the same song name. This is the song with Girlschool, and they provide backing vocals, and it's just a decent rock song. The guitar solo and breakdown are pretty cool. I like that 70s rock feel, but otherwise it sounds more like 80s glam. Then Battle Lines. It's a heavy song, lots of chugging guitars. Reminds me of classic Iron Maiden or Judas Priest, especially from that early 80s. A lot of palm muted opening guitar riffs. The chorus is melodic. You hear keyboards in the style of Deep Purple. Overall, this one was pretty good. Then Strangers is a power ballad. It's a typical ballad. It follows the same formula as most power ballads, such as clean arpeggios and verses and distorted power chords in the chorus. It's not a bad song. It's enjoyable. It's melodic. And it usually works when they put this type of song as like song number 4, so it's kind of like well placed. Gates of Destiny is next. This is one of those songs that reminds me of classic Iron Maiden. It has that galloping guitar. Tells the story of a ship that was capsized on the shore. Very melodic. It's a little more laid back, but it's a song that's for fans of classic heavy metal. Alcatrazz is next. It's kind of strange you have a song named after themselves, being that this band is like so many years old, but it's traditional heavy metal. It's fast-paced. It's energetic. The drums are powerful. The keyboards are very good and has a nice rhythm. Holy Roller Love's Temple is a hard rocker in the style of Deep Purple. Lots of guitars and keyboards. One of those songs that brings back classic 70s hard rock. And it's a good song if you're a fan of classic rock, and that's really all I have to say. Power Numbers is a song that reminded me of classic Rainbow, the type of song I could imagine Ronnie James Dio singing. Lots of keyboards, has a lot of that galloping rhythms, and I know critics compare this album to Rainbow and Ronnie James Dio, but for me, this was the one song I felt was a good representation of that. Salute the Colors is a little different. It's a little dark, it's heavy, has some elements of progressive rock. It's a song about politicians and corruption, so it comes from that standpoint. One of the heavier songs, I thought it was pretty good. It sounded a little different than some of the others. And the last song was called Bring on the Rock, and they spell it R-A-W-K, which is kind of cheesy, but it does represent that cheesy 1980s traditional arena rock and heavy metal where everything was over the top and they were just singing about going on stage and rocking everybody out or whatever it is. It's cheesy and campy, but it's not too bad. In conclusion, I thought it was pretty good. It was a good classic heavy metal album by a band that's been around for a long time. Type of album that would satisfy people who like traditional heavy metal and classic metal, probably geared more towards older people, but you can still be young and appreciate this. I thought the production was very good. The songwriting was good. I think everybody in the band is very talented. They're not reinventing the wheel. They're not doing anything original. It's just good, enjoyable, hard rock and traditional heavy metal. My score is a 7.5 out of 10. Let me know in the comments what you thought. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. It helps me with the algorithm. And please let me know what you thought. Here's my review of the 2021 album. And thanks for watching.